Good morning.
Morning, Amy.
Hello.
Morning.
How you doing? Good morning. So I was thinking of you last night, Henry. We had the most amazing, it looked like it was an incredible storm. There wasn't as much lightning as I was hoping for, but I was like, yeah, you'd love this. It looked great.
Yeah, okay, great. Yeah, I enjoy this. I don't know, I like it if the world looks like it's going down, but you're in a safe place at home. You are not affected. That's great. As long as you're not outside, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I was at home and I was very, very happy to be inside. So yes, they've just demolished a load of stuff in front of my apartment, and as they've been doing it, our view from our window has been like gradually increasing, and now yeah, we've got pretty good views. Sadly, we're not facing into the most exciting part of London, but still, it's nice to have a view, right?
That's great. Yeah, I think I'm one of the people who also would like to watch a tornado, but from far away, of course. That would be interesting, but not too close. But seeing it in live would be great. So
yeah, for sure.
Kind of excited by catastrophes if they are not affecting people and I'm far away from them.
Yeah, like dramatic weather is always good to see, right? So awesome. So we are 1 minute over, so I will get started. Hopefully Graeme will join us in a bit. I think he is around. Ping.
Yeah, he just pinged me for handover.
Awesome. Okay, so on MTTP, it's looking pretty good. It's still not full data. I'm expecting that actually once we, all the incidents aside, right? But I'm expecting once the data catches up that this will look pretty healthy. So that's my expectation.
Excluding today, we are kind of, I think the last thing we deployed is more than 24-hour old.
Yeah, yesterday will upset things for sure. Yeah, absolutely. But I don't think, but certainly the data is starting to come through. It won't have yesterday's in it yet. I think it's up to, I did get told the actual date. It's up to like end of last week or something at the moment. Cool, so I haven't reduced the MTTP target yet. I can only reduce it per month. So I may just wait till beginning of June and drop it back down, assuming things look better going into June. Cool, and then a couple of announcements, we can read those, just some time out coming up. I've added a new section as well here, interesting reads, just if it's useful, just to put some stuff, but just wanted to share that the error budget stuff is rolling out, and worth having a check-in on that. Like hopefully as this gets adopted by the teams, we'll start to see some real benefits coming in, like in terms of fewer incidents. So hopefully that would be a good thing. But
do we have some kind of, I mean, I'm thinking about error budgets in terms of how they're defined in the SRE handbook, right? So when you deplete the error budget, you cannot deploy. So this is the reason why they works well, because if you have to ship something, because you are rewarded by shipping something, you have to take careful step, because if you deflate your error budget, you will not deploy and you will lose your milestone. So how do we enforce?
These are a little different. So these ones are around how we prioritize work. So one of the challenges we've always had is how do we prioritize new features over tech debt, for example. So once you start to use up your error budget, you have to shift that perspective and you have to start paying down tech debt and sort of changing what you focus on working on.
I think I really still need to read the details of that, because I didn't really figure out what we are measuring there. It looks a little bit like error rates we are measuring in the dashboards. So I don't know if we really have good numbers of updecks barriers at which we start saying this is not okay anymore, because for me it's hard to figure this out from the dashboards at least. But I guess this is still work in which will come up next time. So.
Feel free to have a look and ask questions. Yeah, like, I mean, it is rolling out. So there are things for how the product teams, that's corresponding issues on how the product teams are using this stuff as well to measure it. But certainly from our side, I'm expecting us to, with infra dev issues, should be easier to prioritize. And then hopefully we get the knock-on effect of overall the platform is in a slightly better place.
Okay, makes sense, yeah.
Cool. And then what I want to use a bit of time for today is to talk about issues. So we have issues, obviously we use issues.
I have to drop off the call. Sorry, someone
Sure, no
coming
problem.
here for the water meter. So
I
will join as soon as he's completed.
Okay, you can catch up on the recording as well. That's fine. See you later. I want to chat a bit about issues and how we use these. So I know we use issues all the time. But what's interesting about issues is kind of they have different stages of life, right? So we have like the issues before we start working on things, issues whilst we're working on it, and after we finish working on them. And particularly I always kind of think in 6 months time, like how does this issue become useful? And I need to use issues, like I kind of drop in on them, try and understand what the problem is, try and work out what the priority is. And then often I'm also looking for quick updates. So how's this piece of work doing? Like, do we need to pull more people in, or is there anything we need to watch for? So I want to kind of just chat a bit about how we can ease on this stuff. So yeah, so I grabbed some examples. Apologies, this is a very narrow scope. I just went through my open tabs. So these are not like extreme cases, but more just ones that were on my mind. So on 1749, thanks for your comment there, Henry. I was guessing, like, what's our view of this one? Like, do you all think, is this a description that makes it easy to keep track of what's happening on this issue? Are there other things we want to be seeing in here? I guess specifically is there stuff that you find you're having to read comments for in order to understand the status?
Oh, I think that's a very general question, because it very much depends on what you are talking about in the issue, right? Sometimes it's a very complex topic where you really need to read and understand a lot to just understand what this issue is about. And sometimes it's like in this case, having just a list of items that need to be worked on is enough, and you get the context already. I think in this case, for instance, while it's a complex topic, this makes it easy to just follow on this one task which needs to accomplish. So having this checkboxes in the description and update them while you work on this issue, I think is a very good thing to do. Maybe we can apply this to most of our issues. It's getting complicated if you need to get the status of some task which you're not directly involved in, and it's a very complex topic, which is technically hard to understand and maybe involving a lot of other epics and issues. Then, of course, you need to read a lot of other things that need to be linked there. I think that's the second thing that is important.
I see. Okay.
Or you would need to have a summary of the whole process again and again in each of those sub-issues to enable readers to understand what this is all about. But sometimes the complexity of what we are working on is really hard to grasp just in one issue.
Yeah, sure. And how do you know whether you need to read all the comments on something or not?
Yeah, I mean, in cases where now it's still ongoing work and where things need to still be researched because we are not sure if we fixed everything, then I think it doesn't help. You need to really read the history of issues, right? Like, for instance, with these complex topic of how do we get environment variables into Kubernetes without leaking secrets, and different approaches, and possibly fixing this in the charts in different ways. This is something which I even now have problems to follow because it's not easy and challenging. So I don't know a good answer to this.
Okay.
I think if you just break it down to things that can be worked on totally independently, if you can, that helps. But if you want to follow the whole process, you need to read and read again, and that's making it really very time consuming. That's my issue at the moment, especially with this example, for instance, because figuring out what is happening on the different fronts here, like in our charts in Kubernetes, in addition to that, then also our Kubernetes cluster upgrade that happens. And on all these things come together here, and you need to try to follow all of this. And I spent, I think, 1 or 2 hours of reading each day just to try to keep track with that. And that's not easy.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I feel exactly the same. Yeah, it's the scale, isn't it? It's fine if there's one issue and you're working on it. If you have 10, it takes a lot of time. Okay, so
I just
go for it.
wanted to add just some thoughts as well. I have from a different perspective. It's nice when we can like update the description with like what the current status is and stuff, but there's a couple of downsides to that, which I find as well, which often, so I'm a person that's like updating the comments, not updating the status, but I'm not saying that's a right or wrong way. And the reason I do things like that is for 2 reasons. One is when you update the description, people don't get notified about it, or it seems the notifications are erratic. Like it's not like a comment. I know everyone will get an email with just the comment that I've added. So deciphering what has changed in the issue description to me is hard sometimes. Like you're like, it says it was edited by Skyback 10 hours ago. What did he change or what have you? The flip side too is as well as like you can start with an issue like this is let's do X, Y, Z, and then you have discussion. You can be like, we actually want to decide on a totally different direction. And in which case you could be tempted to go back and rewrite the issue description, which I guess does make sense. But then you're kind of like erasing a lot of the history of what you initially just were saying the problem. What you initially just decided, even if it was a bad solution, you have the discussion to say the good solution, but that's all erased now. All you see is the good solution and some comments about a bad solution that is no longer having history of. And I don't know if it's just because GitLab doesn't give you a good history of issue descriptions and what have you. So I don't know. I kind of like it's nice to have the description updated and the clear outlines and say what the status update, especially if an issue goes multiple weeks, right? Like you know, another good example would be that service discovery issue. It went multiple weeks. We did lots of different things related to it.
Yeah.
Kind of like you could just add stuff to the description, but as I said, people wouldn't be getting notifications about it. It would be the description becomes one giant thing. So it's kind of like you I don't know, maybe it's almost like you want to have the description maybe with the link to the latest comment of where the status is at, but have a structure for what you should be commenting on as the current status, but that's kind of not, I don't know. I don't have a good solution, but I just wanted to point out it's some of the downsides when you rewrite the issue description.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I agree, especially with the point of not changing the description if we change course, because if you lose history, that's really bad. Maybe update it, saying, okay, this was the first approach and this is the next one, but if you erase what you have planned before and did before, I think that's really bad. I experienced this in several cases. That was really bad because sometimes it also was hiding mistakes that we made and we could learn from. And that's not feeling good doing this. So I think it really depends. We have use cases like in this issue example here, where it's good to have a summary in the description. But for other cases, I think it's not working as well. And you always need to use the comments as a last source of truth, I think, to follow the history. So you should update comments in any case, and maybe the description also, if you can, and it makes sense.
Do we need something like you have a comment thread, like when you open the issue, you have a comment thread for like status updates or something, and just reply to that comment thread? So maybe you kind of like, you can talk about all this other stuff, but at least you just have one comment thread that's got clear. The other thing I like about comment threads as well is when people do comment with status updates, it puts the time, you know, when they commented, so you can kind of get a history of, you know, so-and-so updated this 2 days ago, they said this 3 days ago, which once again, if you edit the description, it will tell you the last time the description was updated, but it will never tell you like the 6 people who edited it before that.
I can share my experience on this when I was working on CI/CD team. So back then we had a very good approach with people that are no longer in the company. But basically, we used to only state the problem in the description of the issue at the beginning, and then starting a new thread for each solution or something like that. And then every conversation thread kind of converged to something, and then whoever was the DRI for the thing was sending message like, I'm going to update the issue description with the following content, and then the new body of the what was going to add or change, the section it was going to change, posting that so that everyone gets the notification and you have some clear thread of train of thoughts, right? So we start discussing something, everyone converge to something. This is the final shape at the moment, and then this is kind of closing the thread, right? So you update the description. So because there are two types of consumer for issues: those that just want to know what's going on and they want to have a glimpse of what's happening, and though in this case having a good description is vital. And those who want to participate in a conversation, understanding if something was already discussed, already discarded, or whatever was the details of this, and erasing the description every time, removing things that are no longer relevant doesn't help here, because you lose track of information. So that one was good. I also like what we tried to do with Discoto when we tested it for the rollback. Is kind of, well, it takes time to get used to it, but I really like the fact that if you are structured in how you organize your issue epics or even merge requests in that case, it can provide you the summary and table of contents with links to where things were discussed. But yeah, it only works if everyone is involved into it, and it requires you to be very you need to organize the conversation very well. Is absolutely impossible to backfill something that was not structured properly into a Discoto working table of contents.
It's hard to scan as well. Like the issue description becomes a lot less scannable than other stuff. But I like that idea that you have about the comments, like, because I think it's a really great point about there are different types of consumers, and I think comments are great because they give a timeline and they, it's easy to see what changed and you get all the data around it. But once the issue gets to a certain length, it's a real investment to have to build up your knowledge of all those things. Should we try adopting that you mentioned there, Alessio? Like, I love the idea of actually leaving a comment that says, hey, I'm updating the description with, X and Y and making this change. Because then it works, right? You can do the drop in and view the description, but also if you're just reading all the comments, you have that in the timeline as well. Should we give that a try just for a few weeks and see? I'll obviously mention to everyone else in the team and see if that helps stuff. Awesome. Great. I've mentioned a couple of others, but let us move on, because I don't use all the time in this meeting to just discuss this, but I'll share other thing, but let's give that one a try for now. Henry, I'll pass over to you for B.
Oh yeah, let me check. So I need to, I think, clarify what we thought is the case, but isn't the case from our last rollback experiment. So when we last did the production rollback, as you remember, we first disabled dried canary. And then we started the rollback, which is starting the production deployment with the older package. And we did this during high traffic times. And at this point, the EOC was getting paged by alerts saying single node saturation. And he was coming into the call, and we very fast decided, okay, it seems we saturated our fleet. We need to bring back canary again. And then I opened this linked issue here saying, looking to the metrics, and saying, okay, we need to scale up the fleets because we, can't disable canary reliably anymore because our fleet doesn't have enough capacity. But I think we jumped to conclusions too fast, because the metric we looked at is the single node saturation, which means on one single node, maybe on more, but at least on one single node, we saw worker saturation. But if you look at the graph directly, you see that for most other nodes, they stay below 50% saturation. So the fleet wasn't saturated at all. We just got tricked in thinking this because it happened all at the same time. We jumped into conclusions, and I didn't check the graphs thoroughly enough, which I posted there. But the conclusion is the alert is a little bit misleading because it's just saying single node saturation, but it doesn't say you on which node. And so you often think, okay, this is on a lot of nodes, there's saturation maybe, but in fact, it's in most cases just one. So this alert isn't very ideal and wording. You need to know this. And then checking the graphs is important to just see what you're talking about. I think it all came together because it was a stressful situation and all really looked like we saturated, but yeah. So the good thing is we don't need to do anything. The fleet is way below saturation. We maybe even overcommitted. And so we can safely drain Canary. The only thing that we need to look into maybe is why during deployments we saw a single node being saturated. Maybe there's some issue with stopping workers or something like that, but it's resolved by itself during the deployment. So it seems to be fine. So maybe a small percentage of users saw an uptext drop who were using this single node because it was saturated, but for the rest of the fleet, everything was fine. So that's what I wanted to say.
Thanks, Harry. I have a follow-up question because if I remember correctly, during the demo, so the EOC was paged because of this, but then we actually see APAC drop. So if it was is this correct that a single node in the fleet being saturated is reflected as a general metrics, like the APAC is dropping for the what it was web, I think, or API. I don't know.
If you look into this issue, I think below I posted the error rate. So the APAC drop wasn't very high. It was a small APAC drop, but brought us to the line of close to being below SLO. And it's the timing is very much related to the error rate going up on the single node at the same time, which I found in Kibana. And I don't know how many nodes we have, but if let's say we have 40 nodes and one node is failing during that time, then we already have, I don't know, 2% of errors rate if all of them would fail. They didn't fail all. And we just had a rise in error rates of 0 point something. But this is already getting into the SLO, I think, hitting the SLO limit. So yeah, we had a small APAC drop, but because of a single node, not because of fleet saturation, which totally makes sense. So there was an issue, but nothing having to do with saturation. An issue with why a node gets into this state and then is saturated, which I don't know yet.
This was the node that was saturated was a GKE node, wasn't it? Or
no, it was a VM.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that is surprising.
Web 15 was seeing high. I mean, sometimes during deployments, maybe some Puma workers are not stopped or something. I don't know, something like this. I didn't really look into this, but if this occurs more often, then we should really have a look at this.
Yeah, I'm just surprised because I would have thought had this been a consistent issue that we would see it a lot, because obviously we do a lot of deploys, but obviously it's not a consistent issue.
But so another question. So when we see that a node is saturated, what are we really comparing? So available workers to incoming requests, what are we looking at?
I think we have maximum threads, maximum workers setting per node. And I guess the metric is just measuring if we really
You're using all of them.
All of the nodes or all of the CPUs are used by all of the workers, something like that. Need to look into the details, yeah.
Yeah, so because maybe just a thought, then we can move on. Sorry for just going into the details, but if we send the hub signal, so we stop accepting new requests, in theory, we should start dropping threads that are not serving anything. But if you have just 1 or 2 long queued requests, you may be live enough to hit the new refresh of the metrics, and then all of a sudden you have 2 threads only, and both of them are serving, because by design, right? You're releasing resources that you're no longer using because you're preparing to roll out the new version. And in that case, if this is how we check saturation, your saturation is high, because by design, that node should just stop serving everything.
Yeah, but it just happened on the single node. So something was just wrong with this one node for all the
Yeah,
other
because
nodes?
you just need one long request.
Yeah.
If you have one request that is stuck, and you reach the I suppose we have graceful timing, so you say hop, and then up to a certain amount of time you can still serve what's in there, right? So we had the same problem with Gitly when we were implementing graceful restart. We say most of the operation are very short, but some of them are long. If you are cloning something, how long should we wait to restart? And we said, we don't care. If you're cloning, you get a failure because of a restart, and you will clone again.
I think we have something similar, like something like 10 seconds, or I don't know exactly the number of grace period, where we set the unicorn worker into this not ready state. So it's not getting new connections, but still waited to be shut down, and then it's happening. And if you look at the last graph in the issue, you see that for all the nodes, the error rate was going up, which I'm not sure if it should be like this. I mean, it looks like we, cause a lot of error responses during deployments.
During deployment, we have a lot of errors. Yeah. We have SQL timeout. We have connection drop to Gitly. There is a bunch of errors during the deployment.
Yeah, I mean, that's a totally different problem. Not saturation, but there is something which could be improved during deployments for sure, I guess. Maybe not, because of if you have long-running queries, we need to stop them at some point, right? But yeah.
Nice. Would you mind opening some follow-up issues on that one, Henry? Just maybe on the alert and the fact that we do get a saturation alert when one node's out. And also if, like, as a placeholder for investigating how we can improve things during deployments.
Yeah, I need to talk with maybe Jav to see. I guess this has been discussed a lot already, and this is a known issue, but I need to figure out if we have something following this already, or if we decided this is acceptable because it's known. I need to first figure out how much we discussed this as a problem already, but I will follow up on this.
Feel free to just open up an issue, like a placeholder issue, and like we can always close it again if it ends up being duplicate. But at least we have it there.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for that. Cool. Okay, so I shall stop the recording.